Alright, guys, welcome to Chuck versus the Seduction, brought to you by the Intersect Project Podcast. I'm your host, Paul, and let's start off with the usual thank yous and whatnot. Thank you to all those that keep on and listening. This past week, we passed 500 downloads of the podcast and 25 subscribers, which 25 doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot of people. That's 25 people listening to me every week talk about Chuck, a show that hasn't even been on the air for 2 years, 2+ years at this point. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive, I think. And also 500 downloads for only, I think 14. I think this is the 15th episode. And that's pretty good. We have over 500 downloads for that. This is a good podcast. I enjoy doing this. This is a lot of fun for me. I mean, I get to talk about my favorite show to other people who really love the show and people who want to share that show with the world. And I believe we can do it. We're going to share this show with the world. It's going to be out there, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So, here we go. Oh, and thank you to Chuckaholics.com for the support since the beginning, along with other people who have listened to the show. We now have an updated page on Chuckaholics.com, so go check that out for all the latest episodes of the podcast if you do not have iTunes. And if you do not have iTunes, you can listen. You're listening to it there right now, obviously. So, let's just delve in. Let's delve into this episode. Also, I apologize if my voice is hoarse sounding. I just about lost it at a football game last night, so I apologize for that, but it should be fine next week, unless we're victorious again, which I hope we are. Anyway, let's delve into Chuck versus Seduction. Let's do it, folks. Let's do it. So, as all of you know, as all of you who have listened previously know, we start off talking about the show episode at hand with the hit of the episode and the song of the episode. Because for all you new people out there, if you haven't listened to the podcast, you need to watch the episode before and then listen to the podcast, because I talk about what happens in that episode. So I like to start with the hit of the episode and song of the episode, so people know where I'm coming from. All right, so let's do it. First off, let's go with hit of the episode. Now, there wasn't a lot of bad guy fighting, but bang, 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 punch, punch, punch. Those are terrible sound effects, but just, play along. And we decided, I've decided that since there wasn't a lot of, I haven't decided anything. I have decided on who wins, but let me go into my explanation. Sorry. Anyway, there's not a lot of fighting, at least until the very end of the episode. And then it gets intense. You got Sarah punching people in the face. You got Casey knocking bad guys out because he's a badass. You got Sarah Walker being a badass, kicking people in the face and punching them. And then, what does Chuck get to do? Chuck, you hands down win this hit of the episode. Hands down win the hit of the episode. And this is why. You literally swung from the top of the Bymore on a banner. Bam! Knocked Sasha Banachek out. Boom! Knocked her out. Bam! Hit of the episode right there, baby. Hit of the episode. Alright. So there you have it, folks. Chuck versus the Seduction. Hit of the episode. Congratulations, Zachary Levi playing Chuck Bartowski. You have won Chuck versus the Seduction's hit of the episode. And if you want a scoreboard check, everybody, here we have Season 2 hit of the episode score charts so far. Sarah Walker, 1. Chuck Bartowski, 1. Who's going to win this season? Chuck's starting to get in on it. Is he going to win the season? Could he make a comeback and destroy the competition? Who knows? Who knows? Now, we go into another favorite episode of mine, or another favorite segment of mine called Song of the Episode. And I'll tell you why it's one of my favorite segments to do in this, to do on the podcast. It's because the music in Chuck, I've said this before, So sorry if I feel like I'm repeating myself in a lot of things, but I really believe this, that the music of Chuck is what makes it go from a great show to one of the best shows on television. Just leaps from there. Or no, I take that back. It goes from a Hall of Fame show to super galactic fantastic #1 show in the universe. The music does. It's just it's fantastic. The person who chose the music on Chuck is just perfect. That they knew what they were doing and they did it well, very well. And so this one was really hard. This one was really hard to choose. Uh, so I chose two songs, and these songs really stuck with me. And the first song of the episode, it's okay, we'll call it songs of the episode this week, is Do You Believe in Love by Huey Lewis. And it is a fantastic song. Huey Lewis and the News is just a fantastic band in general. They produce fantastic songs that people love to hear, including myself. And I'm sure people out there who listen to this podcast have heard Huey Lewis and the News song and been like, hey, these guys are good. They know what they're doing. Or I guess they knew what they were doing because they're a band from like the 80s and whatnot. But anyway, it's a really good song, and it fit perfectly for the moments, like Chuck's daydream sequence with Sarah for Sarah, and the other. No, yeah, after capturing Sasha, whatnot. So, I mean, the instances when they used Huey Lewis in the News song, Do You Believe in Love, in this episode was just fantastic. And then the song that I personally was like, I can't not pass this up. I can't not make this the song of the episode too, is Love It All by the Kooks. And I am a big fan of the Kooks. Their song, Naive, I've been a fan of that song since I was like junior high. It's a fantastic song. And so there you have it, folks. We have two songs of the episode this week, and they're so good. I guess I can't express in words enough how good these songs are, especially in their instances. Chuck going to see Sarah at her hotel before getting cock blocked by Bryce, and uh, love it all. Not love it all. Do you believe in love when Chuck's having that dream sequence when Sarah's walking into the Bible? It's just perfect. Just perfect. Not perfect like a cat, but perfect. So there you have it, folks. Songs of the episode. Do You Believe in Love by Huey Lewis and the News, and Love It All by the Kooks. Congratulations. If somehow somebody from Huey Lewis and the News and or the Kooks is listening to this, congratulations. You've won this week's Songs of the Episode. Alright, so let's delve into the episode at hand. Alright, so let's start off this episode by talking about the Buy More. I really like talking about the Buy More because that's where a lot of the comedy comes from, is just the characters of the Buy More all working together. I mean, working in a different sense of working than most people are used to. They don't really work, but they work there, so to speak. So, as we learned last episode, Lester is now the assistant manager at the Buy More, or as they like to call him now, the new ass man. Even though Big Mike thought that was him. And that part, I'm sorry, guys, that was probably one of the greatest lines. That's not the greatest, but it's one of the funniest lines of season 2 in general. I laughed really hard when Big Mike sees the new banner and it says "New Ass Man," and he looks up and he's like, "I'm not new." I lost it, guys. I lost it whenever it happened. It was just outstandingly hilarious. And anyway, so after that, like I said, Lester's the new assistant manager, and he feels like he doesn't command any respect, which he should, because he commands no respect. He doesn't command any respect whatsoever, and he shouldn't. For being honest, he shouldn't command any respect because you can't be a screw up your entire time at the Buy More and then become an assistant manager and try and be a hard boss, someone people fear, because they were just pulling pranks with you week ago, and now you're trying to boss them around. You can't do that. That's not how things work in the real world. And if it did, a lot more people would do it. Actually, they probably wouldn't, because who wants to be a boss in charge of a bunch of people? Especially those buy more hooligans. That's crazy. Anyway, so Lester's the assistant manager, and what does he do? He comes up with a way to get the Bimorians to fear him, and that is his childhood punishment, Wheel of Misfortune. Now, we all know Wheel of Misfortune because I'm assuming most of the people listening to this right now have watched the TV show before. So you guys all know about the Wheel of Misfortune. And if you're new, hey, you get to learn something new about the show. It's fun. It's happy, and it's a good thing. Anyway, so they have the Wheel of Misfortune. And what happens? He makes Morgan spin the wheel. And it lands on the one thing that would destroy the entirety of the Bymore. You're fired. Morgan's fired. Lester fires Morgan because of Wheel of Misfortune. And what does that cause? A chain reaction of everybody leaving, everybody quitting the Bymore. And Lester, just lost every single employee at the Bymore. Crazy, huh? Absolutely crazy. So, the next day when Big Mike comes in, and actually it's the same day, I think, actually. Anyway, Big Mike comes back in, and he's like, hey, Lester, where's everybody at? Oh, it is next day. Yeah, it's next day. He's like, yeah, what's going on? Where's everybody at? And he's like, oh, they're just hiding. And Lester's just flustered. Just completely flustered. But, I mean, Big Mike really doesn't care about his employees, so, I mean, it would have taken him a while to notice that there was nobody there. And that's what he was hoping for. And that's what he got, because he got everybody back, and he had to make a few concessions, and he got the employees back. He had to give everybody a 2-hour lunch break, which is excessive, but seems right up the Bimorians' alley, and they could go and do whatever they wanted in the bathroom for as long as they wanted. That's Jeff for you, always wanting to sleep in stall number 3. Anyway, so. And then Lester has to spin the wheel. And what does he get? Dirty diaper duty. Ugh. Man, poor Lester. But hey, that's what you get for trying to pull stunts like that. That's what you get, man. So that's really what happens at the Buy More. At least for the Buy More employees. I mean, obviously the deal goes down between Team Bartowski and Sasha Banachek. You know, stuff like that. But, I mean, that's not the Buy More employees, is what I'm getting at, I guess. So, now, let's talk about the romance department. And not with Chuck and Sarah. Talk about the romance department for Awesome and Ellie. Do, 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 do. I apologize, that was supposed to be sexy music. I guess I can't do sexy music. Whatever. Anyway, Captain Awesome, Ellie. This is your time to shine. Now, we learn Captain Awesome hasn't been very romantic lately. In fact, he's been the very opposite of romantic. And that is not flying with Ellie. Their biggest date since he proposed was Awesome taking her to Arby's with Chuck and Morgan. And that's not a romantic date. So Awesome decides to have a romantic date with Ellie planned, and he's got this all worked out. He's gonna make pecan pie, roses, and everything. And who does he go to ask if that's cool? He doesn't go to ask if that's cool. He goes to see if Chuck can skedaddle. And Morgan butts his way into the conversation as usual, and tells Awesome, "Hey, none of that is right. I know Ellie better than you do, even though you're going to marry her. And she likes Klondike bars and Sister Act, not pecan pie and Casablanca. She is still the 14-year-old in Morgan's mind, I assume. So, obviously, Morgan's advice hit with Awesome because Awesome respects the people in Ellie's life. Even Morgan, when he shouldn't. At least in this case. Anyway, he does that. He listens to Morgan, and obviously the romantic date goes well. Obviously it goes well. No, I'm kidding. It ends terribly, as we all saw. And he really he screws up. So he's trying to apologize, but he just doesn't know how he can fix it. He's like, all right, I guess I can. At some point, I gotta put some rose petals on the ground, make some delicious dinner, but I don't have time for that. So when they come back from work together, he's like, babe, I'm trying. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have listened to Morgan. And then they both walk in and they see what the CIA did for them. And Awesome's like, duh, I did this, of course, because I love you, Ellie. And he gets the sexy time because Ellie loves it. And that does it for the romantic department for Ellie and Awesome. Now let's delve into Team Bartowski, and then we'll touch a little bit on the relationship of Chara. Actually, I think I'm gonna mix Team Bartowski and the relationship of Chara into one because they're pretty intertwined in this episode, and we all see you can easily see it as the episode goes on. So let's delve into that. So from Chuck versus the First Date, we learned that the actual cipher was not held by Big Man Colt, R.I.P. Michael Clark Duncan, but it's still out there in the world, and Chuck is still the Intersect until they can make another Intersect, which could be forever. Who knows? But anyway, so obviously they need to find the real cipher, and they know that the actual cipher is on the person of Sasha Banachek, Russian, I'm assuming Russian spy extraordinaire, but anyway, Russian bad guy extraordinaire. Anyway, they could torture. They said they could torture her for it, but that's a bad idea. She survived in a Bulgarian prison for 7 years without telling anybody, and I don't know if Bulgarian prisons are like bad, but they're probably not good. So let that sink in. Anyway, so somebody has to seduce her, and they have to find the only person in the world that can seduce Sasha Banachek. That is one Roan Montgomery, special agent James Bond type. Like if James Bond was a real person, he'd be basically that guy. And it's insane. It is just insane in the membrane, insane in the brain. And they find him, and he's like, well, somebody's got to seduce her. It can't be me, because she'll flip out and try and shoot the entire hotel up. And it can't be Casey, because she'll smell CIA from a mile away. And they didn't suggest Sarah. I don't know why. Who knows? But anyway, they ended up on Chuck. Now, that means Chuck had to learn seduction techniques from Roan. And the learning of seduction techniques from Roan really ended up being just Roan telling Chuck that he's not good enough to seduce Sarah, to get Sarah on his side. And I don't like that because I like Chuck and Sarah, and they should be together forever. And they will be together forever. And that's all I care about. That's all I got to say about that. Anyway, so that divulges into Chuck passionately kissing Sarah to prove that he can be seductive. And she is all about that. They are both all about that kiss. You could tell. And it's a good thing because we want Chuck and Sarah forever. Right? Right? If you don't agree, get out of here. You're in the wrong place. Not really. Keep listening. But, I mean, come on. Everybody wants Chuck and Sarah. I mean, that's just it's a given fact of Chuckdom. So, they talk. They do the seduction school, and Chuck goes to the seduction place. Goes to the hotel to seduce Sasha. Anyway, he let's talk about Sasha. Scary, scary person. She's not cool. She's not my favorite one episode bad guy, but she's not terrible. She's alright. So she's got that going for her. But let's talk a little bit more about Chuck and Sarah from that first part. As we know in the beginning, Sarah doesn't think they can be together because of the CIA, because the CIA is keeping them apart so bad. And oh, also I forgot to mention this earlier, but we get introduced to a place that we will all grow to love, Castle. If you're a new Chuck fan, you'll enjoy Castle, the underground secret base. Not the writer on the show Castle, but the underground secret base. If you're an old Chuck rewatcher like myself, you love Castle because it's a fantastic place where great things happen. Love is started, love is lost. It's just a very emotional place. But anyway, so I mean, we get to see Castle, which is awesome. And then Sarah says something early on in the episode at one point, which I really like. She's talking to Chuck, and she goes, Chuck, you can have everything you've always wanted. That's subtle, Sarah. That's subtle. Because he knows exactly that you mean that he can have you once the Intersect's out. So I like that. And then Ellie, I think another quote I like about Chuck and Sarah is from early on in the episode is that Ellie's talking to Chuck and she's like, "Hey, how do you always have that look in your eye when you see Sarah walk in the room?" And he's like, "Oh, we just pretend we don't date. We're just pretending we don't date, and I have to win her over again and again." And it's just so funny because he's like, "Oh, it's like I have to win her over again and again and again." He looks so happy when he says that. So, and now that once Roan is introduced and whatnot, we're about to get back to the topic at hand of. But when General Beckman sees Roan, she lights up. There's something there. No spoilers here, but there's something there. It's not really a spoiler alert, I guess, but I guess you could kind of take it. Anyway, so here we go. Back to the episode at hand. Back to the hotel. So anyway, they go to the hotel, and Chuck approaches Sasha Banachek, and he's supposed to do the 4-pronged attack of one Roan Montgomery. That attack includes 1, making sure that all eyes are in the room. He does that, but only when he bumps into everybody. And anyway, he's like, this boy couldn't charm anybody. And she's like, why? Sarah's like, it worked on me. Boom. Or no, well, she says that to Chuck earlier in the episode, but I mean, in this case, it's kind of prevalent. It's obvious that something's going on between them, especially for what happens in the van. So I just wanted to mention that. I wanted to mention that Sarah literally said Chuck's charm worked on her because I want to talk about what she says in the van to Roan. Anyway, so Chuck bumps into everybody, failed the first prong, goes for the second prong. He has to make sure she's lubricated with alcohol. And he orders 2 dirty martinis with 3 olives. Ice cold dirty martinis with 3 olives, I think is what he said. But anyway, that's what he orders. And then, guess what happens? She doesn't drink anymore. And then Roan says, how was this boy supposed to seduce her without alcohol? It's a perfect line. And anyway, so he's seducing old Sasha. He's doing a decent job talking about France and whatnot. France and pastries. The croissant, specifically. But anyway, Roan accidentally spills an entire martini on the equipment because he's a bumbling drunk. And that begins the conversation where Sarah's like, hey, Chuck is just an asset. I do not have feelings for him. And that's when things get really sad because she broke Chuck's heart and she didn't know he could hear her. Or she did and she didn't think about what she said. And that's sad because she had just told him that his charm worked on her. Now, Most of us from the outside know that at this point, she's just trying to cover for her job. She doesn't want anybody thinking, she doesn't want the CIA thinking, she doesn't want anybody thinking that she's just fallen in love with everybody she's working with, even though she is in love with Chuck. It's not a spoiler, we can all see it. She is in love with Chuck. But she does not want anybody in the CIA knowing that, because this is her whole life. If they kick her out of the CIA because she is in love with her asset, what is she going to do? The CIA is all she has. She has to protect herself. She's trying to protect herself, but it's ending up hurting the person she loves the most. And it's a sad thing, but it's just something she feels she has to do. And that's why I brought up the topic. She pretty much told Chuck that she fell for him. And this just destroyed him, because he had to hear her say, "Hey, I do not have feelings for Chuck. He's just an asset. Like, he's nothing." Which is, it sucks. But anyway, Chuck continues with the mission. He gets up to he gets up to Sasha's room, because she says, and I quote, "Make med patient sex to me." And that is just a hilarious line. And I think she meant love, but hey, who knows? Translations, who knows? And I lost it when she said that. It was just hilarious. Also, I noticed an editing error in this episode when he is trying to get her attention as she's walking to the elevator. He goes, "Hey, Missy," and then a half second later, Roan says into the mic, "Call her Missy." Now, I thought for the longest time he's saying, "Don't call her Missy," but he told him to be a bastard, and that's what a bastard would say. "Hey, Missy." That seems kind of a bastard thing to say, I guess, or not really. I don't know, honestly. I don't know, but I've listened to it over and over again. I'm pretty sure he says, "Call her Missy," so I think that was an editing error. I could be wrong, but maybe I'm right. Who knows? Anyway, it's not important. Anyway, they get back up to the hotel room. Chuck discovers the cipher, or Chuck discovers how terrible of a person Sasha Banachek is, how she's killed people and whatnot, and he tries to duck out. Guess what? Guards are guarding the room. And what does he say to them? "Hey, the hotel's room's a knockin'. We're probably having sex." Because they couldn't, I guess they didn't want to pay for the line. They want to pay for the rights to the song they used the line of, so I thought that was funny. If the hotel room's a knockin', we're probably having sex. I thought that was funny. But anyway, so Chuck's stuck in the room with Sasha Banachek, and he discovers the cipher is on her neck. Casey and Sarah are not far behind, but as soon as Chuck gets the cipher and runs off, he finds out that Sasha has captured Casey and Sarah. So he has to go through all that to try and figure. He has to get Roan back in the game. He gets Roan back in the game to help him save Sarah and Casey, but mostly Sarah, because Chuck is in love with Sarah. And he brings him out, and that's what he does. He does it. They save Sarah and Casey after a good old ass kicking session, and Roan Montgomery has now realized he's not a coward spy anymore. He can be an actual spy again. So that's what we got. And then, as we all saw at the very end, Chuck's trying to go seduce Sarah at her hotel room, and what does he find? Bryce is back in town, and he was inside with Sarah. Wonder what they were doing. Hint, hint, we all know exactly what they were doing. So now Chuck is just completely flustered. He's got to be completely flustered. Who knows what's going on in that boy's head right now? So, there we have it, folks. That's Chuck versus Seduction. A solid episode where we learn mostly about furthering the relationship of Chuck and Sarah. Furthering and moving 2 steps backwards. It's basically that. You take 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards. So, yeah, sometimes that has to happen in life. Well, there we have it, folks. Chuck versus the Seduction. We've shared a few laughs, shared a few emotions together, but we made it through the episode. And next week we get a doozy of an episode with Bryce Larkin back in town. Bryce Larkin and Chuck Jealousy. It's gonna be a good episode. Once again, thank you to all those people who are listening, and thank you to all those who have supported us. I like your opinion on this. Why do you think Sarah, this is my opinion question of the week, why do you think Sarah said she doesn't have any feelings for Chuck? He's just an asset. You can tell me your opinions on Twitter. I'm at ChuckRewatch33, capital C in Chuck, the first C, not the second C. I'm on. We have an Intersect. We're on the Intersect Project podcast page on Chuckaholics.com and the official Chuck Wiki. So send all your opinions there. Last but not least, I'd like to promote another podcast I am a fan of after listening to the first 2 episodes, and that's the Nerd Machine's new podcast, Picking Favorites. If you haven't listened to it, I'd suggest you go check it out. It's a lot of fun. You can listen to the second episode. It's got Adam Baldwin in it. Zachary Levi is one of the main people who's in it, so he'll be in it like every week, I think. So we here at the Intersect Project Podcast like to support the Chuck alums and what they do, and we like to support obviously we like to support Chuck people and what they do, but we also like to just support good projects. That's what I'm all about. And NerfHerder Entertainment. The whole company, we're about supporting strong, awesome products, and that podcast is one of them. It's a good podcast. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't listened to it, give it a chance. It's an hour long. Not a lot of people have an hour out of their day to do it, but if you can, I suggest you do it. It's a lot of fun. I enjoyed listening to it. So, the Intersect Project Podcast would like to officially endorse Picking Favorites, the Nerd Machine podcast. We like to support other podcasts too, because podcasts are fun. Well, folks, there you have it. Another episode in the books. Join us next week. I'm your host, Paul Nagley, and I will see you guys later. Remember, everybody loves Chuck. Some people just don't know it yet.